So today is going to be our last day with the elimination method when it comes to the lesson. So we're going to focus more on solving special linear systems. So our essential question is, how do you solve linear systems by elimination? Again, we're still using the elimination method where you want to be able to cancel everything out. So for your beginnings question, I would like you to do the warm-up. So you can go ahead and pause the video, and when you're finished, you can jump back in and make sure that your answers are correct. It's review from what we did in one of the previous units where we were not solving for equations, but we were solving for variables on both sides. Okay, so you should have been able to finish. So what we're going to do is we're going to be solving on our equation. So if you remember from what we did previously, you're supposed to get rid of the variable first by making sure that all of your variables are going to one side of the equation. So when I do that, I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. As you can see, this is going to cancel out because it's 6x minus 6x. This is also going to cancel out because it's 6x minus 6x. So then what we are left with is we have 1. I'm going to bring down my equal sign, and then we have a -8. So looking at this equation, is 1 equal to -8? And your answer should be no. So that means that it is not equal. So your answer for this question should be no solution. And if you remember, when we were doing our graphing, when we had two equations that were not equal to one another, when it came to solving, we had no solution for our x or y value, then that is what gave us parallel lines where there's not going to be a spot that's going to be intersecting. So we're going to be looking at no solution questions today. And then we also have this one over here. Remember, if it's in parentheses, you should be doing order of operations, which means it's going to be coming first, and that is then the distribution. So we have 3x minus 12 equals 3x minus 12. And then you want to make sure that you're getting rid of your variables and making them all go onto one side. So again, my 3x minus 3x is going to cancel out. My 3x minus my 3x is going to cancel out again. And then for this question, we're going to actually end up having -12 on one side. And then we brought down our equal signs, and then we have -12 on the other. So looking at this, is -12 equal to -12? And the answer is yes. So that means my answer is going to be infinite solutions. So that means I could make any value for x, and it will always make it true that both sides will be equal to one another. So, and again, if you remember what we did with graphing equations, when we got infinite solutions, when we were looking at our systems of equations, that was when we had lines that were on top of one another. And that's what's going to be creating your infinite solutions, where you have x and y values that are going to be consistently the same. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today, again, is going to be doing systems of equations, but we're going to be focusing more on seeing if it's going to be an infinite solution or a no solution. So for the first one, you can see that we have one of our equations in standard form, but the other one is not. So we're going to first have to make this one go into standard form. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. And then when we do that, we should get -2x plus y equals -4. And then I'm just going to bring down my other equations. That way we're not confused. And now we're going to be doing 4x minus 2y equals 8. So this is going to be the equation that we're working with. So if you remember that here, we need to make sure that something is eliminating, something is canceling out. Right now, my x's are not going to be the same. I have a -2 and I have a +4. And then my y, I have a +1 and a -2. So they're not the same. I can't just cancel them out. So I'm going to have to do an extra step. So I'm going to multiply this by 2 to make this be able to cancel out, because if I multiply the first equation by 2, I will be able to get my x's to cancel out, because it'll be -4x and then it'll be +4x. So when I add that, when I get my -2 here, I'm going to get -4x. And then I'm also going to take 2 times y, which will give me 2y. And I'm also going to take 2 times -4, which will give me -8. So now I'm going to be doing this equation where I have my -4x plus 2y equals -8. And then I have 4x minus 2y equals 8. So again, remember the whole point of this is the elimination method. So we're looking to see what we can eliminate. So as you can see, I have a +4, I have a -4. So that means that I should be able to cross them out. And actually, if you look over here, I have a +2y and a -2y. So if I add them together, it's also going to cancel out. And then from here, we have a -8 and we have an 8. So I want to remind you that if I have a -8 and I'm going to add 8 to it, that means I'm going to be getting 0. So over here, when we canceled everything out on this side, we actually ended up with 0. So both sides now are equal to 0. So that means my answer is going to be infinite solutions because both sides are equal to each other, but I also got rid of both of the variables. So again, if you're looking for the same concept up here, if you remember when we got rid of our variables, we looked to see what the answer was from both sides. If it is equal to each other, which is right here, then you had infinite solutions. Here, this is not equal to each other, so we had no solution. So looking at this one, when we canceled out our variables, it became 0 equals 0, which is infinite solutions. That means that they are equal to each other. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do this one. So remembering we're looking to do the elimination method, so we want to be able to eliminate something. I'm going to choose to eliminate my my y's. So I need to make this one become a -9. So I'm going to multiply the whole entire thing by -3. So when I take 3 times -3, I'm going to get my -9 that I'm looking for. Okay, so if I go ahead and multiply that, I should get -18x minus 9y, and then that should be equal to -27. And then I have 2x plus 9y is equal to +27. So those are the two equations that I'm going to be looking for, and I'm going to be able to figure out what it equals. Okay, so for looking here, our y's are going to be canceling out because we have a +9 and a -9. So if I add them together, it cancels them out. Here I have -18, I have +2, so that's going to become -16x. This is -27 and +27. If I add them together, I'm going to get 0. This we're going to go ahead then and divide by -16 on both sides. Put x by itself, so x is equal to 0 because 0 divided by -16 will give you 0. So remember, although both of these were equal to each other, it didn't necessarily mean that I was going to have the whole entire equation cancel out. It needs to be that the x's and the y's are going to be canceling out. So this one I only had the y's cancel out, so I was able to actually solve for x, and that means that I should get a value for x. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute into one of the equations. Remember, you want to try to use one of the original ones, just in case something happened with one of the other ones. So I'm going to use the 2x. So I'm going to replace my x value with the 0 plus 9y equals 27. So 2 times 0 is 0 plus 9y equals 27. So again, if we have that, we have 9y equals 27. I'm going to divide 9 on both sides to get y by itself. I'm going to get y is equal to 3. So my solution for this one would be 0, 3. So again, don't always automatically assume that you're not going to have a solution for all of your questions. Some of them you're still going to have the one solution where you have an ordered pair. Others you might have infinite solutions, and as you see, we might even have a no solution eventually. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do the same thing again. So we are going to make this that one of them is going to be canceling out. So I'm going to choose to make my x's cancel out this time. So I'm going to multiply my first equation by 2. If I multiply it by 2, I'll be able to have negative 6x, which means that I'm going to be able to cancel that out with my positive 6x. So let's go ahead and multiply first. I'm going to get negative 6x plus 10y equals 12. Remember, you want to multiply the whole entire equation, not just the x values. Okay, so now I have both of my 6y's. They're going to cancel, 6x's, I mean. I'm going to cancel them out. And then I also, here, we'll be having these cancel out as well. Okay, and then if I add my 12 with a negative 12, that's also going to end up being 0. And then if you remember when we canceled it out on the last question for number 1, when we canceled it out with both of these, it just became 0. So 0 is equal to 0. Is that true? The answer is yes. So it's going to be infinite solutions. Again, remember, if both of your variables cancel out, it's going to become 0. You don't have anything else over here. Here, I added these two together, and that also gave me 0. Because 0 is equal to 0, that gave me infinite solutions. And then we're going to do the last question. So here, remember, you want one of your x or y values to be the opposite of the other. Okay, so here, this is not the opposite. So we need to make it the opposite. So we're going to multiply it by negative 1. So I'm going to multiply the bottom one by negative 1. Again, it doesn't matter if I chose the bottom or the top. It's going to give me the same answer in the end. Okay, so I have the bottom one. We're going to multiply it by negative 1. I'm going to get negative 9x plus 5y equals negative 8. I'm going to break down my other equations. That way I'm able to look at both of them at the same time. So this is what we're comparing. As you can see, we have our x's that are going to cancel out. And I even have my y's here that are opposites. When I add them together, they're also going to cancel out. So again, remember, if we have both of the equations with a variable cancel out, it's going to become 0. And then we have negative 8 and positive 12. So that's going to become 4. So looking at this, is 0 equal to 4? Your answers should be no. So I'm going to create my slash through here. This is not equal. So that means my answer should be no solution. So again, I'm going to review. So if they are equal to each other, like over here, you're going to have infinite solutions. Whenever you're able to cancel your x and y values out, if I'm able to cancel my x and y values out, but I have something that's not equal to each other, that's going to give you no solution. And then also remember that some of the questions are still going to easily have your ordered pair as a possible solution. So don't automatically assume that you're now only going to be getting infinite and no solution. You could have any of these 3 possibilities.